The Zephyrian research vessel Scientific Endeavor hung in the void between Jupiter's moons, its crystalline hull refracting starlight into prismatic displays. Inside the sterile laboratory, Chief Xenobiologist Kethvar manipulated the holographic display with 4 of his serpentine appendages, each ending in delicate sensory nodes rather than crude manipulators. "Fascinating," he hissed to his assistant Veltar. "The human genetic sequence is even more primitive than our initial scan suggested." The hologram rotated slowly, displaying the double helix structure of human DNA. Red markers highlighted what the Zephyrian computers had identified as genetic anomalies, deviations, from what their advanced civilization considered optimal biological design. "Look at this aberration," Kethvar continued, zooming in on a particular sequence. "Their limbs terminate in these appendages, 5 digits each, completely rigid, lacking any sensory capability beyond crude pressure detection. How did such a species ever achieve spaceflight?" Veltar slithered closer, his own sensory tendrils analyzing the data streams. The Zephyrians had evolved from creatures similar to Earth's octopi, but over millions of years had developed sophisticated appendages that could taste, smell, see, and manipulate matter at the molecular level. The idea of having only 2 crude limbs ending in bony protrusions seemed laughably primitive. "Perhaps we should examine their recent military encounters," Veltar suggested. The Galactic Council's reports indicated unusual combat effectiveness despite technological inferiority. Kethvar manipulated the display, bringing up combat footage from humanity's recent conflicts with the hegemony forces. The first clip showed a human soldier in damaged power armor, his rifle's power cell depleted, facing 3 hegemony warriors in close-quarters combat. What happened next defied everything the Zephyrians understood about warfare. The human's arms, those primitive appendages, moved with shocking speed and precision. His hands, those rigid clusters of bone and flesh, struck with devastating force. One hegemony warrior, protected by advanced kinetic shielding, crumpled as the human's fist somehow bypassed the energy barrier through pure mechanical impact. Another fell when the human grabbed the warrior's weapon and, instead of trying to figure out its biometric locks like any sensible being, simply crushed the firing mechanism in his grip. "Impossible," Kethvar whispered. "The force calculations don't add up. How can such primitive appendages generate that much power?" They watched more footage. Humans lifting massive debris to rescue trapped civilians. Human engineers rebuilding war-torn cities. Their hands working for hours without fatigue. Manipulating tools with precision that rivaled Zephyrian sensory tendrils. Human artists creating sculptures by directly shaping stone and metal with their bare hands. "Run a biomechanical analysis," Kethvar ordered, his voice trembling slightly. The computer's response materialized as a 3-dimensional model of human arm structure. Muscles, tendons, and bones highlighted in different colors with force vectors and leverage calculations overlaying the display. "By the ancient depths," Veltar gasped. The leverage ratios, the muscle density, the bone strength relative to body mass. The analysis revealed the truth that the Zephyrians' advanced sensors had missed. Human arms weren't just appendages. They were biological machines optimized for force multiplication. The shoulder joint provided incredible range of motion. The elbow acted as a fulcrum for devastating leverage. The wrist allowed for precise control and power transfer. And those crude hands. They're not just manipulators, Kethvar realized, his earlier confidence evaporating. They're weapons. Natural weapons that can apply focused force with surgical precision or devastating power depending on need. The computer continued its analysis, showing how human muscle fibers could contract with explosive force, how their bone density could withstand tremendous impacts, how their nervous system could coordinate complex movements faster than most artificial systems. "Look at this," Veltar highlighted another section. "Their training protocols. They deliberately subject themselves to controlled damage to strengthen these appendages. They call it conditioning. They make their hands harder, stronger, more resilient through voluntary trauma." More footage played. Humans training in something called martial arts, their arms moving in complex patterns, striking training dummies, breaking boards and bricks, grappling with each other in controlled combat. What the Zephyrians had initially dismissed as primitive play was actually sophisticated weapons training. And here, Kethvar added another layer to the analysis, their tool integration. Watch how they use their environment. In one clip, A human engineer trapped in a collapsed building used his hands to tear through metal sheeting, bend support beams, and create tools from debris. In another, a human medic performed delicate surgery in a battlefield tent, her hands steady despite explosions nearby, saving lives through pure manual dexterity. "We've been looking at this wrong," Kethvar said slowly. "We assumed that our sensory tendrils represented evolutionary superiority because they can analyze molecular structures and interface directly with our technology. But humans adapted for a different kind of survival. They don't just interact with their environment," Veltar continued the thought. "They reshape it. Those arms aren't just for manipulation, they're for construction, destruction, creation, and protection. They're multi-purpose tools that can adapt to any situation." The research vessel's communication array chimed with an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Admiral Thexani's image appeared, her scales showing the deep blue of concern. "Kethvar, we need your analysis immediately." Human diplomatic teams are requesting meetings with all member species. They're calling it a hands-on approach to galactic relations. Our military advisors are unsettled. Kethvar looked at the data still displaying around him. The footage of humans building, fighting, healing, and creating with those remarkable appendages they called arms. "Admiral," he said carefully, "I recommend we accept their diplomatic overtures immediately, and perhaps prepare some very sturdy furniture for the meeting rooms. Is that significant?" "Admiral, we've just discovered that what we thought was humanity's greatest biological weakness is actually their most sophisticated adaptation. They don't just have arms, they have precision instruments that can apply anywhere from a feather's touch to several tons of focused force, and the neurological sophistication to control that entire spectrum consciously." As the transmission ended, Kethvar stared at the genetic display one more time. Those red markers that had indicated genetic defects now seemed like badges of honor. Evolutionary achievements that had allowed humanity to literally build their way from a single planet to the stars, one handful of matter at a time. "Veltar," he said quietly, "update our threat assessment protocols. Any species capable of surviving with only 2 manipulator appendages should be considered extremely dangerous." "Because they're naturally armed?" "No," Kethvar replied, watching another clip of human children learning to use their hands to create art, build structures, and embrace each other. "Because they've learned to build everything they need, including peace, with tools they can never lose or have taken away." The scientific endeavor began its journey back to Zephyrian space, carrying the most important discovery in their species' history. Sometimes evolution's greatest gifts come disguised as limitations, and humanity's arms were the ultimate proof that strength isn't always about what you can sense, but what you can do.